All right, so tonight, what I would like to do is just review an awesome book. Highly recommend it for everybody. Got a really cool cover on there where Congress is actually made out of dollar bills, and it's called Republic Lost. So I'm just going to start off with the introduction and might get into a couple of examples that are used throughout the chapters, and then kind of talk about how that relates to some of my ideas. So basically, the book starts off with a preface and introduction that kind of poses this idea of, we all know that campaign finance reform needs to happen. There's obviously corruption going on. There's obviously a lot of inefficiency in our government. Problem is that, or at least in his eyes, uh, is that what if we can't rally Americans around this issue of corruption because we're looking for a big bad wolf, these evil people in Congress that are just absolutely evil and corrupt, and that's usually the type of thing that you need to really rally the troops and get everybody really angry, and there's this obvious evil corruption, and the problem is that doesn't really exist. That while there is some corruption going on in Congress and the Senate to a certain extent, it's definitely not the big issue, or at least not overt outright corruption where people are purposely taking money just to try to have their own personal gain at hand. And I kind of agree with them to a certain extent. I mean, I do think that obviously everybody's in things for their own personal interest, things like that. But I get where he's coming from. That most people in Congress at least believe in their heart of hearts that they're doing what's best. But that doesn't mean that what's going on is not corruption. It is corruption. It's just a different type of corruption than we've seen in the past. Uh, and so basically, he talks about the dependency theory. He believes that, rather than outright corruption, politicians have become dependent upon political contributions. So with the advent of television and the radio and the internet, basically the cost of running a campaign has become very, very expensive, a lot more expensive than it used to be. And because of that, the money has to come from somewhere, and that the people who provide these funds tend to be businesses, wealthy people, large corporations, and it's not necessarily a tick for tack that you get. Okay, they're going to give a campaign contribution and they're going to get this law passed. That doesn't really happen. But what does happen is a long term relationship that happens between politicians and corporations. That over a long period of time, they continue to fund a party or a politician, uh, or a special interest lobbying group, and then this money over time influences the behavior of politicians. So one example that he uses is a doctor. Now I'm gonna kind of botch this just to try to make it a little bit easier for people to understand. Um, Basically, if you're a doctor and you're prescribing medicine to different people uh, based off of what you think is going to work best. And obviously, there's a lot of different options out there. There's a few different things that you can give to people, and each one has its own benefits. And you make your best decision. And then all of a sudden, a pharmaceutical company decides to start rewarding you as a doctor. and start, just giving you maybe a speaking position. And it's a pretty good gig. It's like, $10,000 for every time you do it. You do it a couple times a year. No big deal. But over the years, you start using that money to take your family on vacation. So every year in summertime, you get to go to a different island because you've sort of got this, you've got this little bit of extra money. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, um, you realize that your prescriptions of writing this specific drug are kind of getting a little bit low, and you know that the pharmaceutical company tracks how much you're buying. And so there is always kind of that risk that, well, maybe if I'm not giving out their product enough, that they might not continue to offer me this extra little bonus incentive. Now, it's not to say that the doctor is definitely going to prescribe that drug over other drugs. That's, who knows what's happening there. But me as a patient, I would not want my doctor receiving any sort of kickback, so to speak, from them, because there is a slight possibility that whether consciously or subconsciously, in the back of their mind, uh, they're preferring a certain product over the other product, and they don't necessarily have my best interest in mind. Again, it's not necessarily that the doctor's evil or that they're doing anything wrong, but just this sort of dependency that the doctor has developed, by getting this extra money, might be kind of skewing their decision. And so he uses a lot of other great examples. And I'm not going to bore you with them. I really highly recommend the book, Republic Lost. And in the next video, I'm going to kind of discuss a little bit about how some of my ideas relate to Republic Lost. But great book, recommend it, and I hope you tune in to my next video.